This demonstration we're going to have a look at how we can configure Outlook Web App. So we're going to have a look at specifying the server to require SSL, which should be on by default. Have a look at Outlook Web App virtual directories within the Exchange Management Console. Look at the various authentication options for the Web App virtual directories. Have a look at file attachment type settings, gzip compression settings, segmentation settings, and the web beacon settings that we can set up as well. So I'm already in IIS. So we just launch up IIS, into Sites, default website, and have a look at the Outlook Web App directory. We'll then have a look at Ssl settings, and we can see by default it does require SSL. Next thing we'll do here, just come back to the default website and just have a look at the authentication settings. So within the authentication settings, having a look at bindings, and we can have a look at HTTPS, edit these settings here, and we can see that we have the certificate in place. So everything's set up correctly there. So close all of this down. Next thing we'll do is just have a look at the Outlook Exchange Management Console. So we're within here, we've got our Outlook Web App virtual directory. We'll right click and have a look at the properties. Within the properties, what we'll be able to see, when everything refreshes through here, we'll be able to see the internal and the external URL that are on use by the server. So we can see the internal URL is set, and we can see the external URL is set as well. Into authentication, we can see we're using, in this case, forms-based authentication. We can specify the login format. We may have multiple domains, so we specify domain /username. We could use the user principal name, so bob@adatum.com, or we could use the user login name only and specify the logon directory. Next button we have is segmentation, and within segmentation we can decide exactly what the user is allowed to have. So as you can see, we've disabled all address lists. We've got notes disabled. And if we scroll down a little bit further, we've disabled the theme selection. Anything that we want to select on here, so for example I'm using SharePoint, so I might decide to disable public folders. Click OK here. That's just going to set these settings in stone so that users attaching to the Outlook Web App server will not be able to access these various options within their Options tab. Next thing we're going to do is just go to the Exchange Management Shell, and what we're going to do here is we're just going to set up some of the settings for file extensions. So one of the things I'm going to do here is just set the Outlook Web App to force users to save the Excel spreadsheets before they open rather than open them within the Outlook Web App itself. So to do that, I've got my set OWA virtual directory command, and what we're going to have a look at here is the default website, and we're going to force save file types for Excel spreadsheets. So hit return, that's done. We'll do the same thing for docs. Hit return, and as you can see, we've now set that. If we then just sort of like type in our set OWA virtual directory commandment, what we can have a look at is there's a number of different settings we can put in place. So for example, we could set up action for unknown file and MIME types. This will specify how to handle files that are not included in other file access management types. So these can be allowed, blocked, or force saved. We've got allowed file types that we can set up as well, so specifying exactly what files are allowed to be handled as attachments. Allow MIME types to specify the MIME attachments. Blocked file types would allow me to specify the file extension of the attachments that are blocked. Blocked MIME types specify the type of MIMEs that are blocked. Force save file types specifies what we need to save rather than just open, and we can do the same thing with MIME types as well. That's all done through the set OWA virtual directory. We can see some of these settings by using the get help and then set -OWA virtual directory. Commandlet. Hit return, that'll go away and it'll just generate me a list of help. So as we can see, quite a few things we can set with that command. Other things we can do as well is if we have a look at the examples, we can see multiple examples that we have in place. And we can see a number of different examples here. So first example, for example, what this one's going to do here, it's just going to modify Outlook Web App rules on the server. So for example, we can specify public access, and we can specify the action for unknown file and MIME types. I'm going to block all of them. Other things that we can do within here as well is we can set up the Gzip level. Now Gzip allows Outlook Web App to perform better over slow network connections, but Downside of that is it may slow the server performance down due to the increased CPU utilization. In order to set that, we have our set OWA virtual directory commandlet. We specify the default website, and what we have here is we've got the gzip and then level, and we specify this as off. So as we can see, let's set that up now. So we'll put that in place. The next thing we'll have a look at is setting up the web beacons on our Outlook web app application. So yeah, a web beacon is a file or object such as a transparent graphic or an image that's sometimes put on a website or an email message. These are typically used together with HTML cookies to monitor behavior of a user on a website or to validate a recipient's email address when the email message contains a web beacon is opened. Web beacon forms sometimes can contain harmful code. So ideally what we want to do here is we want to limit their usage on our Exchange server. So to do that, again, we do it all through our Exchange management shell. So typing in the command, so what we're going to do here is we're going to set the Outlook web app virtual directory. We're going to set the identity to the default. We're going to filter web beacons in the HTML form, so we're going to block all of this harmful or potentially harmful code, and we're going to force filter. Other options we've got here is disable filter to allow everything through, or use filter choice by default will allow the user to choose to allow web beacons on individual messages. So we'll hit return. And as you can see, we've come back to a flashy cursor, so that's all now set. So that's looking at configuring our Outlook web app. Thanks very much.